Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sports Blitz here, and welcome back to our next NFL record prediction for the 2025 to 2026 season. Today, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Just want to say real quick, I know the background probably looks a little bit different. I kind of rearranged some stuff in my room, so have the camera facing a different way now. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. So, few things before we jump into the roster review and everything. I want to say I feel like the Falcons have a lot of talent. They have a lot of good players on their roster, and really they have for the last few years. I mean, last year I thought they were going to be a really good team. I thought they would. I want to say I predicted them either 11-6 or 12-5 last year. Like I thought they'd be really really good, and they kind of disappointed. Um, so it's a little bit of a hard one because it's like again in my mind I feel like they have a lot of really really good pieces, but it's kind of one of those things that until I see them really putting it together, I'm it's a little bit hard to predict them to go 12-5 again, you know. So let's go ahead and get on into it. Starting off with the quarterback, Penix showed some talent last year. There was definitely a little bit of promise there, but you could also definitely see some pretty big misses in some of his throws. Which I mean, that's entirely fair. He was a rookie. He only played a few games. You can't expect him to come out and be perfect. So you get that, but it kind of makes you wonder how big of a jump he's going to make year two. You know, is he going to kind of just pick up at the same spot he left off, or is he going to be taking a pretty big step forward? You know, it's kind of a big question mark right there. And I feel like if the quarterback's a question mark, the whole team's a little bit of a question mark right there. So, again, I like Penix's potential, but I've definitely got to see more to really say, like, okay, he's the guy. So, in terms of running back, they're set. I mean, Bijan's a top five running back. You could debate top three, honestly. I mean, I think the top two are, you know, Saquon and Derrick Henry without a doubt. But then you could argue, you know, between Bijan, Gibbs, when McCaffrey is healthy, you know, you could argue McCaffrey in there. But anyways, I don't want to get too far off track. Tyler Algier's really a solid number two back as well. So they're set at running back. I have no questions there. In terms of wide receiver, Drake London and Darnell Mooney are a really good number one and two duo right there. They proved it last year. I believe they're both, if I'm not mistaken. I know Drake London is, but I believe Darnell Mooney also was coming off the best year of their careers. So, you know, good promise there for their one and two wide receivers. Ray McLeod, there's some pretty big question marks there. But I mean, him and Kadarius Hodge essentially, you know, swapping for wide receiver 3 and 4. You can't get too upset about it. But I do think there's a pretty big drop off after Darnell Mooney right there. At tight end, Kyle Pitts, like every single year, it seems like we're talking about like, okay, he's ready to break out and be a top five tight end, you know, and then he always kind of disappoints. And I don't know if more of that's more coaching scheme or if he's not getting open or what. I haven't dove too deep into that part of it, but I mean, even going back to last year under the same scheme, he didn't really produce a whole lot. So I'm not gonna say they have a bad tight end there. He's definitely solid. He's definitely like, I would put him in the upper half of the league in terms of tight end, but I'm not ready to put him in like the top 10. So, not really like a hole at tight end, but could be a little better. In terms of O-line, I really like their tackles and guards. Not real big on the center. I feel like the center is a major hole right there. But I mean, with Bergeron and Lindstrom both being really solid guards, that can kind of make up for some of the issues you see at center, as long as the issues you see aren't with like bad snaps, because obviously guards can't really do anything about that. I mean, in terms of protection and run blocking, they can kind of help, make up for those issues. So, I mean, really, in terms of O line, I think they're pretty set. Just want to see them improve at center. I think it was a little bit dumb of them to let Drew Dahlman go, but it is what it is. In terms of defense, still running a base 3-4. They let a few guys go. I know a lot of Falcons fans are upset to see Grady Jarrett go, but also understand because, I mean, the Bears ended up paying him a lot. Like, I think that was definitely an overpay. I think a lot of Falcons fans would agree. Morgan Fox, he's an okay D end. I mean, I wouldn't really say he's like a big hole there, but doesn't really make a big difference for you either way. And then at nose tackle, they've got Rook. I've never known how to pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to say Rook. Second year nose tackle. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe he played a whole lot last year. I feel like he had pretty limited playtime last year. So we'll see what he ends up doing this year. That one's kind of a question mark. I wouldn't say a hole yet, As far as David Onyemata, he's starting to get up there in age a little bit, but he's still playing at a decent level, I would say out of the starting D lineman, he's the one I'd feel best about. So then going to the linebackers, you got your pass rushers in Leonard Floyd, who, even though he's getting up there in age, he can still put together a 6, 7, 8 sack season, Still perform pretty decently. Then they drafted Jalen Walker in the first, who, as I've said several times on this channel, both I'm both a really big fan of him, but also he's not gonna be a full-time edge rusher. He's gonna be used like a Frankie Louvu, Zach Bond type of guy. He'll blitz a lot from the inside. Depending on packages he's seeing, on offenses, sometimes he'll rush from the edge. I think it's gonna be definitely dependent on like matchups he sees in specific games. I don't know exactly what to expect from him for rookie year. I think if he can get like a 5, 6 sack season along with probably 8 or 9 TFLs, maybe a forced fumble or two, I'd say that's a pretty solid, pretty productive rookie year. All right, I think that's fair expectations and pretty solid rookie year sort of thing. So I like that. They also drafted James Pierce in the first. They traded next year's first round pick for him. I think that was a little bit too much value, and I'm sure Falcons fans are tired of hearing that. I get it. I'm sorry. But I mean, if you think about it, like, if you really, really, really feel good about possibly having a late draft pick this year, and think you'd be picking around that 26 spot where you traded that draft pick, then I mean, sure, James Pierce isn't a horrible player to trade for. He's a good pass rusher. If you take out the character concerns, he really would have been an earlier first round pick this year anyways, so it's a gamble that I can see why they did it. So, I'll give him that. Um I would anticipate someone like him getting a lot of playing time in the second half of the season. I think it will start off with Leonard Floyd, like it says, and then James Pierce is gonna kind of take over later on in the season. That's my that's what I'd anticipate there. But as far as the interior linebackers, Caden Ellis is always a really solid pass uh, coverage linebacker. There we go. Couldn't think of the word for a minute. He's a solid pass coverage linebacker. Um, he's all right in run stopping. I wouldn't really write home about him there in run stopping, but he's all right. Divine Diablo's kind of also all right, not fantastic, not awful sort of thing. So I wouldn't really say they have any like real holes in linebacker spots, but and I think they have a lot of potential with Jalen Walker. So decent amount of potential overall. Pretty high floor, I would say too. Terms of secondary, I mean, I want to start off with the safeties here. Jesse Bates, still a fantastic safety. I still think he's one of the better safeties in the league. And then they went out and drafted Xavier Watts in the draft, who I'm a big fan of him too. I kind of wanted the Panthers to take a look at him because I think the Panthers could use a safety, and there were a few guys that the Falcons drafted that I wanted the Panthers to get. But anyway, Xavier Watts should be good. I'm expecting him to play quite a bit his rookie year. I will say, again, as a Panthers fan, I don't think it was smart of them to sign Jordan Fuller. Jordan Fuller is not good. Okay, I'm just gonna give you guys the warning right now. Jordan Fuller is not good. So, just throwing that out there. They did also draft Billy Bowman, who, he's set to play nickel. But I think if Bates or Watts were to go down, he could definitely switch over to either safety spot. I think he has that versatility. And then as far as like the corners go, we got AJ Terrell. He's always a good corner, top 10 basically every year. Mike Hughes is solid as well. Clark Phillips is kind of he's all right. I wouldn't really say he's anything special, but he's all right. He's getting better. So yeah, I mean, like they've got some pieces on defense. I can't say, looking at this, that I'm saying like, okay, this is a 12-5 team, but I mean, it's a pretty high potential team. All right. I think if they put together another really good offseason and can start to figure things out on a consistent basis, they'll be good going forward. But I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not going to say they're going to have a 12-win season, okay? So let's go ahead and get on into the record prediction. Starting off, week 1 at home against the Bucks. I think this is actually really good for the Falcons starting off at home. I think that's going to be a really good matchup to start off. I'm gonna just put it like this. I feel like the Falcons and Bucks are gonna split. All right, I feel like the Falcons and Bucks are gonna split. So I'm gonna have them each win in their respective stadiums. So 1-1 with the Bucks right there. I think that's an entirely fair assessment. Then they'll be traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And I'm expecting the Vikings to take a little bit of a step back this year. I'm not expecting J.J. McCarthy to come out and play like Sam Darnold did during most of last year. I'm actually going to give this one in favor of the Falcons. Then going to Carolina, I also expect the Panthers to take a really big step forward this year. I think they're a team to watch. I also think they'll split with the Panthers. I know if you go back to last year, the Falcons beat the Panthers in Charlotte, and the Panthers beat the Falcons in Atlanta. I think it's going to be reversed this year, though. I think the Panthers win at home, and I think the Falcons win at home. So we'll split there. Just to get the other divisional games out of the way, though, I do think they're going to sweep the Saints. All right, I'm not high on the Saints at all. I don't think the Saints are going to be a good team. So I'm going to say they sweep the Saints. So 4-2 divisional record. I think that's very respectable there. Week 4, they're taking on the Commanders, who they surprised me a lot last year. Jaden Daniels looked phenomenal. Defense honestly looked better than I expected, as long as they weren't playing the Eagles. That is, they got walloped every time they played the Eagles. But other than that, like, the Commanders looked really good. I expect Jaden Daniels to take another step forward this year. I'm going to chalk this one up to Washington. Coming off their bye, they've got the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to give this one to the Bills. It's a Monday Night Football game. I know it's in Atlanta, but it's the Bills in prime time. It's kind of hard to predict the Bills to win that one. And then they're traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. This is going to be a close one. I think this is going to depend entirely on how healthy the 49ers are. If they go into this game with like a fully healthy Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey, I think the Niners win this one. I think if even one of those guys is injured, I think it may give the edge to the Falcons. So, because I don't factor injuries into my predictions, I'm gonna go with the Niners here. But remember this, I think if any of those guys are injured for that game, I think the Falcons take it. And honestly, too, if it was in Atlanta, I'd probably end up giving the edge to Atlanta anyways. So that's going to be a close game regardless. I think that'll be a fun one. Then I think the Falcons will kind of get a little bit out of their losing slump a little bit and going kind of a streak, beating the Dolphins, beating the Patriots, beating the Colts, beating the Panthers, at home, and then beating the Saints. I think we're going to have them beat the Jets and then lose to the Seahawks. And then I already talked about the Bucs game. That's in Tampa in prime time. So that's another reason I think Tampa's taken that one. And then the Cardinals one. I already talked about this one in the Cardinals prediction. I feel like the Cardinals later on in the season are going to be in a spot that, like, they're like right there, right on the edge of possibly being a playoff team. So they're going to be playing a lot friskier and a lot harder than normal. Going to be really fighting to get into the playoffs. And this is a game, again, and I mentioned it during my Cardinals prediction, that the Falcons could very well win. Looking at the two teams right now, if they were on a neutral field or even in Atlanta, I'm probably taking the Falcons there. But it's in Arizona late in the season while the Cardinals are fighting for a playoff spot. I think the Cardinals take it. And then they've got the Rams on Monday Night Football at home. Ooh, that's a tough one. That's going to be a good game. I mean, this one could legitimately just be a dice roll. Like, man, that's a tough one to predict. Oh, man. I don't know about that one. That is going to be a tough one to predict. Because I do think for the Rams, especially since losing Bobby Brown, their run defense is going to struggle a little bit. So Bijan's going to have a good game running, but the Rams receivers, Puka and Devontae Adams, I kind of expect to have a little bit of a field day on the Falcons. So a lot of passing for the Rams, a lot of running for the Falcons. I mean, it's going to be a fun game, but I don't know who to predict. I'm going to go with the Falcons just for the prediction, but I want you guys to consider something too. It's prime time. Would you rather have Matt Stafford or Michael Penix for that sort of situation? That one could be flipped so easily. And then I already talked about the Saints game. I don't think the Saints are going to be a good team this year. I think they're going to be in contention for the number 1 overall pick. So, overall, 10-7 record. I still think that's respectable. There's some games in here that could flip. Could definitely see the Vikings one flip. If the Panthers don't take the jump forward that I'm expecting, they could end up sweeping the Panthers. I really think they're going to take a jump forward. As I mentioned with the 49ers game, if there's injuries there, Falcons could definitely win that. Honestly, week 9, if the Patriots overperform, Patriots could win that one. They're another team I'm expecting to take a step forward. And the Jets. The Jets are a little bit of an unknown as well with Justin Fields. We'll have to see what happens with them. And then I feel like Seahawks and Falcons will be a good matchup too. That one, if someone were to tell me, like, no, Falcons are going to win that one, I'm not going to argue with you on it because, I mean, that should be a pretty good matchup either way. And honestly, same goes for the Cardinals one. A lot of those really depend because a lot of teams change so much throughout the season. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think 10-7 is a pretty fair, pretty realistic record for the Falcons. Again, it's only my second prediction of the year so far, so don't know if this is going to mean first place in the FC South or second or exactly what it means. So let me know your predictions in the comment section below. I'm just going to say right now, if you guys start like swearing at me in the comments saying I'm a total moron or whatever, I'm just not going to respond to your comment. But, I mean, if you guys want more reasoning behind any of my predictions here, leave me a comment and I'll, I'm happy to do the back and forth, chatting with you guys about it. Like, it's fun. It's fun to talk about football, so, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the record prediction. make sure to smash that like button, and I'll see you next time. Later.